Orzala Nemat, who is the director of the Afghanistan Research and Evaluation Unit. Thanks so much for your time for TRT World. Now, first of all, how significant is this development?
Well, in a country, in a situation where violence has outspread from Ghazni to Kandahar, in Kunar, we've been under attack. In Ghazni and Kandahar, we had direct, attacks on civilians and on Afghan national security forces by the Taliban or other groups similar to Taliban. In Kunar province, we are under constant artillery attacks from the Pakistani side. Under such a violent conditions that is ongoing war and civilians losing their lives and Afghan security forces losing their lives, this was quite remarkable that a number of over 3,000 people gathering and agreeing on something which I look at it more like a kind of basically, swallowing a poisonous, reality that is agreeing on the release or endorsing the release of 400 prisoners. I have to note to your audience that these prisoners are not the ordinary ones. They are the ones who were arrested during actions being responsible for, killing of people. And as we know, based on Islamic laws, there is haqqul law and there is haqqul abd. The rights that you can forgive based on the rules of Allah and the rights on the individuals to basically forgive people who are perpetrating violence and murders specifically. So although this is not respected, individual families and families of victims have not been consulted directly except with the representations and directly in the Loya Jirga to agree. But it's quite remarkable to have at least this one considerably sort of a barrier towards peace in a situation where we are still having very little hope that whether this is actually going to end the violence and actually open the further space towards a negotiated settlement and a peace talks.
Right, and the two sides had committed to completing a prisoner exchange ahead of those peace talks. How optimistic are you about the talks in general?
Well, as a matter of fact, Afghanistan is going through, phases of violence, different phases of violence over the 4 decades. This is not a new situation. Being optimistic is a condition that people in my generation of 40 and over are living with. So we are always optimistic. In today's event, partly emotions when the Afghan leaders started to speak and envisioning what would they do in terms of, future if there is peace. Every single Afghan, young and old, have a desire for peace. That desire is alive. The Jirga today have proved that. However, whether we are actually reaching to actual peace is very much depending on the Taliban as the major force behind violence and other forces who are having their external supporters and resources who are funding and facilitating their military operations and offensive in Afghanistan. So our optimism is very relative, and that's very much depending on external forces, whether they actually come around a consensus to make an agreement. Because following to the Jirga decisions, we heard also from the Taliban political office in Qatar that they are willing to start the negotiations upon the release of their 400 remaining prisoners. So the human rights perspective of release of prisoners is something that is not really considered, and there are concerns raised by different organizations and leaders in Afghanistan. But I mean, in terms of so-called barriers, now we have no barriers from our side, and there has to be an immediate start of the talk, and starting with an immediate overall ceasefire.
Okay, let's see what happens. Thanks so much for that, Orzala Nemat. She's the director of the Afghanistan Research and Evaluation Unit. I appreciate your insight for us here at TRT World.